and welcome to On the Prowl, the College of Charleston Athletic podcast. I'm the voice of the Cougars, Everett, our inaugural episode where we're going to, seek and hunt the stories behind the stories of our student athletes and all of the great things going on in the athletic department here at the College of Charleston. Well, who better than the head man himself, Matt Roberts. He'll be my first guest. And Matt, first of all, congratulations, the first ever guest on the Prowl.
Well, I understand you guys asked 100 people. They all said no. So you went to me next. But no, thanks for giving me the opportunity. And thanks to you and others that are behind this to open up this new way to communicate with College of Charleston fans and folks in our community.
Well, things have changed now, Matt, in terms of how people go about, marketing their programs and their departments, and social media now a big part of that. And I know you've been very instrumental and very supportive in that realm. But before we talk about you and CFC, let's talk about just college athletics as a whole, Matt. It is crazy times going on right now, the NCAA, between the transfer portal, NIL, collectives. Let's just start out just genuinely. What's going on in the NCAA?
Well, it's been going on for a while, right? And all this stuff, it really, if you want to pinpoint where all this started, it goes back to Ed O'Bannon on the cover of a video game, EA Sports, right? And then that lawsuit with EA Sports and them using his name, image, and likeness without any sort of compensation or financial gain really got this whole ball rolling. And then fast forward a few more years and these TV contracts, coaches contracts, and just the proliferation of millions and millions and millions of dollars going to the institutions, but not going with cash payments to student athletes. It kind of got a little wonky, a little out of whack. And we as an industry never addressed it. We kept our head in the sand. Lawsuits came and it just really, it became indefensible, and it got a tipping point that was just way too much. And I think, as you see oftentimes with things, the adjustment has now gone way to the other extreme, way too far to the student. I would say I hate to say the student athlete side, but where it's just so easy for a student athlete to transfer. The money is so ridiculous and out of control with no guardrails that we're really in a struggle and a tug of war to find some sort of median that makes sense for everybody.
Now let's dissect this a little better for the average person, not the person that really knows the ins and outs. But let's start first with the NIL, because a lot of people, Matt, may not really recognize or realize there's a difference in NIL and collective payments of what we see going on right now. Talk about NIL and its intent for the student athletes.
Yeah, so the House settlement, the NCAA House settlement, which was ratified and implemented July 1st of 2025, came about to allow for institutions to pay a student athlete for his or her name, image, and likeness. So basically, you have a young man, young woman comes to an institution. They represent that school on the court, on the field, whatever sport they're paying. There's obviously a marketing and a branding and a licensing value to that, whether they're on TV or at their home venue. Before July 1st, we couldn't compensate a student for that, for their talent and for their name, image, and likeness. After July 1, the NCAA said, yeah, you can. And this, not the NCAA, but this lawsuit that was eventually settled with the NCAA and the plaintiffs allows for us now to go and pay a student athlete for their participation in a sport. And students have a contract. Their contracts are licensing and branding agreements that basically says, you come here, you allow us to promote you and to use you, and in exchange, we'll give you a share of the revenue that we generate from your sport. And of course, that gives schools a chance to take some of that TV revenue, to take that ticket revenue, to take the sponsorship revenue that are only being gleaned because of a student athlete's talent. Like, at the end of the day, fans are coming to a basketball arena to watch the Cougars play.
Exactly.
They're watching the talent on the court. They're not there to watch the coach. Yet the coaches were the ones getting the lion's share of the money. The student athletes were getting something. They were getting an education, but they weren't getting the additional revenue that they were generating. So now we can go and do that. The collectives and the external NIL is what you would see with a a student athlete being able to go and engage a sponsor or somebody in the community, or you saw last night, obviously we're recording this, during the middle of the college football playoff, and Trinidad Chambliss was on an AT&T commercial last night. That it was pretty a clever commercial, but with his success and all that, that's a more of a traditional NIL where he has a deal with an AT&T, and the AT&T puts him in a commercial and compensates him directly. Right. That's separate than what we're able to do with revenue share and institutional payments to students.
Now, you said a word that I want to go a little deeper on: contract.
Yeah.
In college athletics,
it's crazy.
We just saw a situation. The quarterback at the University of Washington signed a contract to go be compensated, I believe it was $4 million. A week later, he tried to get out of that contract to go to a different school through the portal. What's in these contracts that even made him think that was a possibility to break that contract and try to sign with another school?
Well, I can't speak to that contract because I haven't seen it. But our contracts that we have with any student we give money with, they're the problem with the whole structure is they're binding, but they're binding really only one way, and that's with our obligation to pay the student what we're contractually obligated. Now, there are behavioral clauses or eligibility clauses, or if a student enters the transfer portal, they would miss out on any payments they haven't received. But that is, again, the kind of the over correction that we've taken as an industry. We've allowed for these payments and we've allowed for these contractual payments to be made, but the agreement is still not twofold, right? If a student athlete wants to leave, they can leave without any sort of penalty. And it really puts an institution, like, let's say that the quarterback at Washington did decide to leave. Is the University of Washington really going to go after him and sue him or force him to be at an institution that he doesn't want to be at? And now you have a star quarterback that you're paying a lot of money with, but is he really invested and involved? So it really is it's a mess. Whereas if a coach left, a coach has explicitly in his or her contract that if they leave before their contract expires, they have to pay a fixed amount to the institution within a certain number of days of their departure. That isn't really the case in any student athlete contracts. And the reason why is because there's no standard, right? If we were to go and have a contract with a student athlete that says, hey, there's a buyout at the end of your contract, which makes sense and sounds good and all that, but nobody else is forcing that in their contracts and not forcing a buyout clause in their contracts, then how do you negotiate that? How do you recruit? So it's this hamster wheel that we keep running, and at some point we got to put a stick in the middle of this hamster wheel to get it to stop and calm the waters, and take a step back and have a more sophisticated, the word that everybody uses is the collective bargaining, where both sides come to the table and agree to a standard that we can all, have guardrails behind and implement, uniformly across it. But the problem with collective bargaining, that's great in the professional sports where you have 32 NFL teams and it's just one particular sport. Well, in college football, at the FBS level, you have 130 something teams across many different economic standards and different conferences. And so to collectively bargain that many students, that many different schools, it's a problem. It's a challenge. And then you have other sports, basketball and baseball and softball and soccer and volleyball. So the collective bargaining thing is a really, really difficult challenge collegiately because there's so many different opportunities and so many different programs and schools and sports. So
now I'm going to put you on the spot, Matt. If you were the commissioner of college athletics, whatever Matt Roberts said goes. And we're not going to talk about the transfer portal. We'll talk about that next. But from the collective NIL paying of players, in the perfect world, what would that look like if you had the ability to make the rules?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thought of having a salary cap is appropriate, but the salary cap has no teeth behind it, right? There's no, we set up an entity that is supposed to police it, supposed to provide fair market value, and it can be debated and taken to court, of what's true fair market value and what's not. And I think if I could do anything, it would be create a time machine, go back 30 years and say, hey, here's what you get as a student athlete. You get, full cost of attendance, scholarship guaranteed for 4 years. You have up to X amount of money, let's say $100,000, $200,000 in cash that we'll give you per year, or that we'll put in an annuity. And upon your graduation or departure to a professional league, you receive that money. I think if 30 years ago we could have done that, people wouldn't have had any sort of issue. And there would have been structure and guardrails. And of course, as the market increases and TV revenues increases, that number could have always escalated. But the fact that we didn't do that back then has really put us in a bind to try to figure out what the right amount of money is. And then it all comes back to litigation, the whole cycle of litigation. And anytime somebody doesn't get what they want, they're going to the court and they're going to the state court, which is completely inconsistent from state to state to state. So it's hard to even talk about and wrap your head around because it's so complex. If it was just talking about football and college football in of itself, where a lot of this stuff started, I think it would be a heck of a lot easier to manage and negotiate. And maybe that's where we need to start. Right. Maybe we just need to look at football. And football has been the main kind of pivot point of all this, whether it's conference realignment. Certainly the TV money is significantly around football. And so maybe FBS football needs to just splinter off and be its own entity, right. Or you take your top 80 schools and you have your Power 4 schools, the ACC, Big 12, SEC, and Big 10, and maybe there's another handful, a couple dozen schools at the Group of 5 level that can invest at that certain level, and they're already separate as it is, right? Their championship is not run by the NCAA. Their TV contracts have nothing to do with the NCAA like it does for the men's basketball tournament, all the other championships. So I think maybe that's the next step, and I can kind of foresee that happening in the future, where football schools at that Power 4 level and maybe some others separate themselves. Right. And then maybe that allows the rest of the sports to get to some sort of normalcy and reasonableness.
And I've always thought that as well. You talk about the super conferences on the football side, and then like you said, FCS kind of do their own thing. Also in terms of scheduling, because as we know, attendance in most of these schools are down. I've always thought it would be great. Let's say you have a 11-game college football season. Well, instead of having to, if you're Clemson or South Carolina, instead of having to play the Citadel or Furman or Wofford during the regular season, you play your 10, 11 games, but use your spring game, have one or maybe two spring games where you play the smaller schools, actually charge attendance, and then that way obviously you can give money to help out those types of schools. But then it's still that separate entity, because at the end of the day, it was cute to have James Madison in the playoffs this year, but I mean, really, we knew there was no way they were going to advance to the second round.
Well, I still think, though, and I lived at SMU. When I was at SMU, we weren't in the ACC. We were in the American, and before that, Conference USA. The only thing that separated SMU from the Baylors and the TCUs were we didn't have a seat at the table. We weren't in a Big 12 conference. We weren't in an ACC and SEC. I think there are schools that you mentioned, like JMU, Tulane, Memphis, others that have invested and have the ability to invest at that level and compete at that level on a regular basis if they have access to that type of conference and that type of exposure and revenue and recruiting pitch. So that's where I kind of get to, I think there's plenty of schools at that Group of 5 level that are even better than some schools at the bottom of the A4 level, right? And I think they're how you determine which schools that is and who's in and who's out, I don't know. But I don't think you can simply say, hey, we're going to take the 4 Power 4 conferences and we're going to take our ball and we're going to go over here and do our own thing, because I think there's some other schools that deserve and are prepared to compete at that level if they have the same access. And like I said, with SMU, they proved that, right? They've proven that in the ACC, only losing 2 conference games in the past 2 years. And a lot of that's because of their ability to financially support at that level. But now they can go and recruit to a conference. They can play a competitive conference schedule and play a Miami who's in the national championship, who, that's one of Miami's 2 losses. So there's some built-in advantages of some schools over others, but access to those conferences and that ability to compete at that highest level is maybe what's missing with some of those.
Another big topic in college athletics, transfer portal.
Yes.
I was talking with some people, Matt. Conceivably, a student athlete could play 4 years at 4 different schools the way it's set up right now. What's your thoughts on what's going on with the transfer portal? And more importantly, can and how would you fix it kind of going forward?
To me, the transfer portal is the biggest issue of all this, and has been for a while. And I think that's where the money gets completely out of whack too. They're tied together. You can't talk about one without the other.
Right.
And the most disappointing thing for me as an administrator and somebody who leads a department where we're entrusted to take these sons and daughters of moms and dads, they give them to us and trust that we're going to take care of their son and daughter as if they were our own.
Right.
Treat them just like we would want them, our kids to be treated, but teach them life skills and prepare them for the real world. And what we've done with allowing student athletes to transfer as many times as they want to, without penalty, without recourse, that's not real world. Like, right. You can't go and work 4 different places and be somebody that is going to sit there in an interview and as an employer look and say, well, why would I hire you
right.
when I think you've proven that you're going to bounce, year after year after year. Well, you're not going to be somebody that's of value to me because you're going to be gone the next time a good opportunity comes open. So I think that is one thing we got to fix. I am fine if a student athlete wants to transfer once, or if a student athlete's coach leaves and goes somewhere else, they have another opportunity to transfer without penalty. But this whole thing of allowing students to go to multiple schools year over year over year, it's not realistic in the real world. It's not teaching them about accountability and perseverance and sticking with something and honoring a commitment. And then at the end of the day, we're in higher education, right? Kids are supposed to come here and get a degree. And how can you get a meaningful degree when you're going to 4 different places? And, even when the thing that I hate too is students are losing a sense of place as well. And we've had that here at the College of Charleston, where we've had kids that have been a year away from graduation and they go to another school and they get a degree from that school that they've been at for 9 months. And now you lose a place and affinity and a sense of kind of being that 20 years down the road. Where are you going to go? Like, who do you really have an affiliation and who's your true alma mater? So, that's more Pollyanna-esque in nature and thought. But I really think that we're not, we've taken away that one life skill, teaching kids and preparing them for real life, that, when the going gets tough, you can get going and there's no recourse to what you want to do and the decisions you make.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. 1 free transfer. After that, if you transfer again, you have to sit out a year. Yeah. Kind of the way it used to be back in the day, just in terms of trying to, and also from a fan standpoint. You talked about it's tied together, financial, transfer portal. If I'm a major donor and I'm giving X amount of dollars for, a particular player, never really get to build that rapport with him because he's only there for 1 year, it just makes it more difficult for you or whoever it may be to go out and solicit, because it feels like they don't have that connection.
Well, that's the one thing. I had coffee with a donor, generous donor of ours who has been very supportive in our revenue sharing and attends every basketball game and loves the Cougars and loves basketball. But his point, and it's reflected a bunch. Any donor I talk to, the what we've lost in terms of familiarity with rosters, getting to know these young men and young women and watch them grow over a period of time, it sucks for the fans. I mean, that's who's really losing in all this. Our fans and our alums and our communities aren't getting to know these young men and women, and then we're asking them to invest in their experience or to invest in their financial gain. All while knowing that they, it may be for naught. They may be gone, come April, May, June. That is really a tough, and it's hard to sit in front of a donor and talk about that because I have no answer to it. Right. I can't sit there and say, yeah, Johnny will be back next year for sure. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, and it's not just a mid-major issue too. Like I was watching UConn and Providence play the other night. And other than Alex Caravan, who's been in college basketball for 25 years,
minimum,
like you don't know any of those guys.
Right.
You watch Duke and Louisville play the other night. Those guys haven't been with those pros. There's very few, maybe 2 players on each team that were with that program the year before.
Correct.
So it even at the highest level, the lack of familiarity, and that's all you hear on a broadcast is this guy played at St. John's last year or played at Hofstra the year before. It really, really stinks for the fans. And even in professional sports, you don't have that. At least in professional sports, even with free agency, you're going to have a guy on your team for 3 or 4 years at a minimum.
At a minimum. And we were talking about student athletes, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to brag because I just saw our kids at the college are getting it done on the court, on the fields, but more importantly also in the classroom. I know another semester record-setting, Lizzie Leslie and her crew over there in the academic department. Talk a little bit about the academic side because Charleston really is taking care of both of them.
Lizzie paid you to ask this
maybe just a little bit.
No, I mean, so we talk about all this stuff, right? The transfer portal and NIL and payments and all that. The cool thing about the College of Charleston and other schools like us is that we still have a semblance of college as it used to be.
Right.
And the kids that we have that come to the College of Charleston come because they want to get an education and they value a degree and they value what a degree can mean for them. Or if they're transferring in, they value what a graduate degree may mean for them. And that it's been pretty interesting. You would think with the ease of transferability and the fact that students can go from point A to point B and move around academically, that your GPAs would decrease. And the fact that we've set a record for 8 straight semesters, that's 4 years through all this transfer portal stuff, that we continue to flourish academically is pretty cool. And Lizzie, you mentioned, and her staff do a really, really good job of making sure that the men and women that come here are placed in positions for success and that they're not just getting a degree just to get a degree. They're getting something that can help them and make them employable in the future. So we're lucky at this school where we are and at this level where we are that there still is that semblance of amateurism, that education's important, that the student part of student athlete is still kept as a priority.
Matt, I think back to when I was a little kid, elementary school. Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Lawyer, doctor, professional player, anything, fireman, police officer. I don't think I had anybody say I want to be an athletic director.
Yeah, nor should they. Up. Yeah, nor should.
Can you tell me how that came about? What was that point in your life where you're like, you know what, I want to be dealing with student athletes and boosters?
I mean, there's a lot of people that in our profession that they're just hell-bent on being an AD. Like that's their goal from day one, and they're doing everything they can to try to be. I was never that person, ever. Like anybody would, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to be an AD? I'm like, hey, look, I just want to enjoy what I'm doing, be challenged, make an impact. I don't want to be complacent. Like I don't want to be bored and do the same thing and be cyclical. If I get, then it's time for me to move on. And so I've been really fortunate to, one, be at great places, be connected with really good people that have pulled me along and given me opportunity. And just through that and through my growth, I came to a point finally, it was when I was at the University of Oklahoma, and I was in charge of fundraising there and started to oversee some sports, and that I figured, I could do this as an AD. I think I'm ready. And then I got an opportunity at SMU and was their number 2 guy there for 4 years. And that's really where I got an understanding of what it's like to run an athletics department, what it's like to work with, a board of trustees, the president's office, a provost office, partners across campus, and really not just the external side, not just fundraising, not just marketing, not just the other things I've been exposed to, but the true overarching nature of higher ed and where athletics fits into it. And, it was really that late in my career that I think prepared me for this opportunity at the College of Charleston, and really, piqued my interest that this could be a lifelong profession for me.
I got to ask you, because a lot of people don't know, including myself. I see you obviously when you're on the broadcast with me on road games, doing a great job, by the way, as my color commentator. What's the average day look like for Matt Roberts as an athlete?
They're in one. Yeah, they're in one, right? They're in one. In the past 2 years, 3 years, nothing. There's not an hour of the day that goes by where there's not thought behind the revenue share component, or how do we get resources or protect the resources we currently have to invest it back into our student athletes, or to create a competitive edge over our peers and be a front runner and a leader in our conference so that we can win championships. And it starts with men's basketball and sprinkles down to all of our other sports. Really the way that I've just grown up, and the other leaders that I've been exposed to is, I like to have good people on our team and let them go do their job and get the heck out of their way. Trust that they know what the standard is, what's expected, what our priorities are, and let them go do it. And be there when problems come up, or be there when decisions need to be made, but really free up our staff to go be them and to let them make their mark, and and then work with our coaches, to identify what their priorities are, to have an understanding of what their issues and troubles are, and then fight to try to find the resources to help them win.
And talk about that, because I can't imagine that can't be easy. I mean, of course, every coach wants more money for their programming, but you have a budget that you have to stay within. Talk about, I guess, the process you go through determining, yes, that's something that is needed, or having to tell a coach, sorry, right now we just can't do that.
Yeah, I don't like saying no, and sometimes that gets me in trouble. But it all, again, and I say this to all of our student athletes, I say this to all of our coaches, say this to our donors, fans, and anybody else, board of trustees. It starts with men's basketball. And I think we have to be real as saying that that's our number one priority. And men's basketball is going to get the lion's share of our resources and our support, because that's the right business decision for the College of Charleston. And for us to think that we can be everything to everybody and still be successful, it's not realistic. So I think we have to be true to what we think what I think can make the biggest impact in this community and for our university. And that's success with men's basketball, because it gets the most exposure, it gets the most eyeballs, it engages the most people. It brings folks 15 days out of the year, 5,000 people into TD Arena that don't just help us in athletics and help our revenue and that program, but it helps share the story of the university. And there's no other sport, no other program that we have that can make that biggest impact. And then if you have success and you get to March Madness and your name is on the millions and millions of brackets that people are filling out, it's, March Madness, the NCAA tournament, it is one of the most iconic sports culture events in the world, right? It's up there with the Super Bowl. It's an event that everybody, whether they follow sports on a regular basis, know anything about it, they understand and they participate in. The old adage of the secretary or somebody that always wins the office pool that has no clue about athletics or no clue about college basketball. They see when they're looking at a bracket, College of Charleston, and the more times they see that, the more awareness that brings about us. And it's our job to try to get that name and our brand out there as much as we can, and we can only do that. We can maximize that through success in men's basketball.
It's no secret. I might get in trouble for saying this, Matt, but athletics really is the most important department on campus. And I say that because I think back to my daughter obviously goes to Clemson.
Yep.
I could walk down the street in Clemson and say, who's the president of Clemson University? Of course, President Clemens just retired, but before that, it'd be President Clemens, where, well, probably nobody would know that.
Yep.
However, if I walk down the street in Clemson and say, who's the football coach, everybody knows it's Dabo. Yeah. Here, and that's marketing. You talk about being in March Madness, or, it was Chad Holbrook and the baseball team playing there. That's marketing on the national scene that you can't pay for. And so for that, it makes sense what you just said. Yeah, you have to put those resources, because when sports win, everybody wins on campus as well. Would you agree with that?
It is, yeah, 100%. Like It's not, I wouldn't say it's the most important. It may be the most visible.
Most visible,
right? There's certainly many other departments that are more important and do much more meaningful, life-changing work than athletics. However, there's no other entity on our campus that can share our story or engage as many people on a regular basis than athletics. Like when I say 5,000 people coming to that's just people coming to our games. That's not people reading the newspaper, watching our broadcasts, or even when we're not playing and we're hosting the Charleston Classic, and that camera for those 12 games pans up and down and you see our brand on ESPN over and over and over again, or they're coming in and out of commercials and they're showing imagery of our city and our campus. We're able to put our brand, put our campus, put our image, and tell our story better than probably any other entity can. And so the more successful we are, the more frequent that brand comes up, the more people want to tell our story and talk about us. When we won the 31 games 3 years ago, the billions of dollars of exposure we had on ESPN, on talk radio, College of Charleston was just coming up over and over and over again. And when you're in the top 25 and on the ESPN bottom line, you see the top 25 scores and you see College of Charleston over and over and over again at bars and homes and places across the country, that's impactful, that's meaningful. And the more frequently you can do that, the more ingrained it becomes in human nature, the more exposed potential students are to start to apply, and it increases your enrollment, it increases the academic quality of a school, and it certainly increases the giving and the donor philanthropy back to the institution.
Now, I'm sure Charleston has very passionate fans, whether it be basketball. They love their Cougars.
Oh, yeah.
I can imagine you may have gotten one or two or hundreds of calls for some disgruntled fans for whatever reason.
No.
Music too loud.
No.
Is there one or two that really sticks out, Matt, that you just think you walk into your office, you play your messages, and you're like, oh, my goodness?
Well, first of all, when you stop getting those complaints, that's when it's time to worry, because that means apathy set in. That means people don't care,
right,
or people aren't showing up. So when people start complaining about a team's success or lack thereof, or their experience at a game, that means they don't care. So I would much rather somebody complain or bring to us an issue that they've experienced. So one, we can correct it, but two, we can show our appreciation for them and their just participation and attendance and care and support of the program.
There's thousands of Cougars going to be watching this podcast.
That's all right. Yeah.
You're opening up the door, but
they know.
Okay.
They know.
There you go.
They know.
Just make sure.
But yeah, I mean, we had the old adage when I was at Oklahoma, we would play, you play Texas every year in the Cotton Bowl. The Cotton Bowl is one of those old stadiums that's built with these, 4 foot or 12-inch beams.
Right.
So inevitably somebody's got to sit behind that pillar and behind that beam. And whether you won that game or lost that game, that beam was 4 feet long, 4 feet wide, or 4 inches wide. Right. So it's always interesting how wins and losses can dictate somebody's perceived enjoyment or lack thereof based off an outcome of a game. But it all comes back to passion. And that passion is what makes sports in general, college sports, professional sports, amazing, right? That's what makes going to those games and watching young kids, go bonkers when they're up on the video board, or when somebody hits a 3-point shot, or watching grown men and women, clamor for a T-shirt, when they're millionaires, or watching them just go nuts when an 18-year-old kid comes out of the court and dunks it. That passion you can't hide it, right? And there's nothing like it. And I think that's what draws me to the profession. Is just I'm not good enough to play sports, wasn't good enough to play sports. But it gives you a chance to be part of a team, to kind of be part of that passion, and to help in my own way and with our staff bring that enjoyment to the city of Charleston and to the college.
We're blessed at the college between TD Arena, Patriots Point, I think Estono, in terms of facilities. If President Shue called you and said, "Hey, Matt Roberts, here's a blank check. Go do whatever you need to do to get Charleston where you want it to be," what would that look like for you?
Man. I think, again, it goes with men's basketball. How do we maximize that sport, and women's basketball as well? So I'll just say basketball. How do we maximize those two sports? The venue, the operating budgets, what's allowed with revenue share and NIL, so that they have what they want, so that we can, again, goes back to the university and sharing the brand of the university, so that we can most consistently and at the national level, highest level, be competitive there. And then trickling on down to making sure that with this house settlement that we can maximize all the ability we have, from scholarships to our Olympic sports, to making sure our facilities remain top notch and are improved when they need to be improved, so that experience is elite. So we're competitive across the board. But again, it would start with hoops. It would start with our ability to maximize that investment at the highest level. And even with that success, that's going to trickle down and help everybody else.
All right, now before we let you get out of here, you might be the only athletic director in America that's a part of the radio broadcast team.
Yeah, man.
Road games, I've gotten a ton of compliments of the E. Now, obviously, my guy Danny does a great job the home games, but that's something you've added to your resume. Tell us just how great it is to work with me.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, you've been bugging me for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
Hey, man, put the headset on.
Yeah.
Hey, man, join the broadcast. I forget was it Northeastern last year?
Up there at Matthews Arena, yeah. Which is no longer there now.
Yeah, right? Which is a great place. When you've said it, like one of the best vantage points that you have of any of the venues. It's weird. I don't know why. Like it's fun, right? Because I like watching the game and I like talking to you about it during the course of it. But it oddly, and everybody knows, like I have staff, like I hate, like going to our games. I'm a train wreck. Like it is the least enjoyable, 2 hours of my week is because I just sit there on pins and needles because we have so much invested and I want us to be successful, so much to validate that investment. But when I'm on the radio and put that headset on, for some reason, I'm not squirming. I'm more calm than normal. I don't cuss nearly as much, so it holds me accountable. But it's been fun, man. And to working with you and to listen to your excitement and to watch the game through your voice and your eyes. Woody Durham, the old North Carolina announcer, he would always say, look, he's going to call the game like you want to hear it, right? Like our fans want to hear it. But you do a great job of calling the game factually, right? And I think we've kind of done that a little bit of, look, when it's bad, we'll tell you it's bad, right? When we're frustrated, you'll know we're frustrated.
You can hear it in our voices for sure.
But we're sitting there trying to will our team and will our kids to play great, and thinking about the game through the fans' lens, and kind of telling it like we see it. It's been fun.
Well, Matt, I got to tell you, man, it's the first guest on the Prowl. This has been awesome, and I can safely say, as somebody who works within the athletic department, having a boss like yourself that allows, you touched on it, you allow your employees to just do their jobs. We all have the same interest in making Charleston the best, and safe to say you've done a fantastic job with your hires. You think about, we didn't even talk about your softball coach, the youngest softball coach in Division I right now. Maggie taking over this year. You're not afraid, and you're not afraid to fail, and I think that says a lot. And even endorsing this and being able to allow us to do On the Prowl and starting our podcast, and Lynn Walsh, our communications director, and Kyle Denzel, the deputy AD, those guys just really giving us this format. So from Cougar Nation, I want to say thank you, because this wouldn't be possible without you.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me. Sorry I have a cold, so apologize for the runny nose and the stuffed up nose and the nasal voice, but no, look, we have a lot of talented people and a lot of coaches that have been here for a long time, or those that are new, like Maggie with softball. And the one thing that I want for all of our staff and for all of our coaches is just have this sense of drive to get better, to drive to make this place better than what they found it. And my hope is that, a lot of people ask me about, coaches leaving, and are you worried about somebody coming and taking this talented coach and hiring them? And I hope they do, right? Because that means that person and that individual has done such a great job that they are coveted by somebody else. And I want staff that is coveted by others. That's an attractive employee for other folks. That means we're hiring the right people, and those people are doing a great job. And I always want coaches and staff that are driven, whether they're here forever or they use this opportunity to go to something that is better for them and their family. I just want them running to something and not away from something. As long as we can keep that culture and build that culture, we're going to be successful in whatever we do.
Yep, it's all about culture, and here at the College of Charleston, we definitely have it. Thanks for watching On the Prowl. We'll see you next time.